Hello, here I am raising the third broadcast concerning this very sad issue concerning Moriel and Jacob Prasch. To all you that have supported Moriel over the years, I know that it's very difficult for you to come to grips with these things, to even want to investigate it, to even want to think about it. But you know, if you want to talk to somebody confidentially, if you want to help understand what's been going on, if you want to understand even how you're feeling, this is something that I'm only too willing to talk to anybody about. You know, that's what we were set up to help people understand that there's no blame for them. There's no there should be no embarrassment that, you know, you followed somebody that has attacked other Christians, that have damaged Christian ministries without evidence. You know, you trusted him. And when I listen to him speak, I can understand why. It's only because I come across people that have been sounded so believable before, and when I've actually dug a bit deeper into them, I found that all that they've ever said was untrue. So please, if you're worried, if you're upset, if you're suffering, don't suffer. Don't be upset. Just give us a ring, and I'm happy to talk to anybody. I first got involved with this because of the bullying of someone called Sally. And in fact, that's still going on. Just recently, there was a piece put onto the internet by Moriel that claimed to saying that we're not going to morally judge her. We're not the people to judge anyone. But then went on to say various things that incidentally weren't true, making it very, very clear that that's exactly what they were doing. I mean, it was an appalling letter, and one that I think is actually so bad that whoever wrote that and whoever decided to put it on the internet should get down on their knees and ask forgiveness, both from Sally and from God, for the damage that they did. And now we come on to the Menelaws. I remember on one of the videos that Jacob produced, he waved a picture saying that he had this document that showed, that was meant to be a sales report. Well, I asked Stuart Menelaws about this, as every allegation that's ever been made about them, I've actually inquired. And interestingly, they actually made a request to the people that are involved with this. And this is what they said. They said, someone got our report for a sale to China. That's not possible, as we only have you and Stuart as contacts. China's sale was done already, but we do not know where the title has been shown, as this info is generally not provided by our distributors in China, due to the fact that there are so many digital platforms. I can confirm, though, this wasn't sold to CCTV, Free TV, due to its anti-government message. That's signed by the company that has the distribution rights. Oh, and by the way, CCTV is actually the China State TV company. So this whole thing is a nonsense. It just isn't true. So Jacob, I'd love to see the evidence that you've got for this. And then we come for other things that I find even more amusing, is that you have accused a brother and sister in Christ, your terms, not mine, your terms, of Deborah being a whore for Jesus, whoring Jesus, making financial money out of this whole issue, of selling the thing that you gave time to, and making money, so much money. You even put a lovely bit on one of your films, one of your broadcasts, of them surrounded by dollar bills to make it really get the message over that they'd made a lot of money. Well, I've got the latest report that I've been shown, which for legal reasons I can't actually show, but if you want to see it, I suggest you get in touch with Stuart and Deborah and go up and see the evidence, but I can assure you it's genuine. It's from California Pictures, who are involved in everything, who are the company involved in this. It's the producer reports up to the date shown, and the date shown is October the 14th, 2018. So this was after you made the allegation that they had made all this money. And what it says is that a certain amount of money had come in, a very small amount in total from all of the areas that were around, of $1,300. All right? Hardly the fortune you're talking about. Oh, but hang on a minute. There's a little bit below that says that they are still owed, under the deal that was cut, $1,700. So at that point, not only had they not made the money you were accusing them of, they'd actually made a loss. You see, Jacob, you make all these allegations about people, but you don't have any facts to back it up. When I first got involved in this, I really didn't have any understanding of where it would go or how much time this would consume. But it's become such an important thing that I feel that this has to be continued until we get some serious answers to the questions that we've been raising. I have to say that it's been quite amusing, some of the things that have been broadcast about myself and about Catalyst by people like Joshua Chavez. I understand that he goes under a number of names, but I'm not really worried about that. I'm more worried about substance. And I have to say, much of what he's written about me is so full of assumptions, misquotes, or downright lies that it's hard to know where to even start. But a couple of issues that I think are quite important that I'll just mention in passing. The first is he seems to think that there is some coalition against Prasch and that we're all working together. Most of the people that are mentioned I've never ever met, never ever spoken to. There's certainly no coalition. I certainly am not working to defend the Menelaws alone. The issue is that what got me interested in this was that Jacob Prasch said some very vicious and nasty things about the Menelaws, and I decided to check them out. And it was when checking them out that I found out that it weren't true, right? And the fact that I've concentrated on that because it's one of the few things that there's actually some very hard evidence that I can raise. And that's the reason why. Now, it's also been suggested that Catalyst has only just started using YouTube. Well, frankly, the reason that is twofold. One, we'd never thought of it before, but we found that a lot of what was being said against the Menelaws was on YouTube. So if I was going to raise this, it was obvious that YouTube was going to be the people that needed to be reached. People that watch YouTube needed to hear the truth. Secondly, it seems to suggest that I'm not interested in any other group apart from Jacob Prasch and Moriel. That's just not true. And anyone that knows me knows it's not true. Anyone that looks at the cutting files, which I'm sure Joshua Chavez has looked at because of some of the comments he makes. But none of it. He doesn't mention any of the other groups that we have had involvement with. And many of the court cases that we've been involved in, trying to get justice for people, trying to help people, he just writes us off as being a one-pony group that only deals with this issue of the Menelaws. I mean, are you serious, Joshua? Are you really serious that that's why people donate money to us and why we've been going for 30 years? You really are somebody that I find almost a joke in some of the things that you say. You talk about the action against the Guardian. It's very interesting that. You quote one piece and you say that that was the reason for the second action. Well, actually, it's the one thing that was not part of the second action. It was never ever mentioned. What was mentioned was much more serious. And that's why the Guardian was taken to court twice. And it cannot be reported about what either of those actions were about by court order. So if you know anything about it, please let me know, or please publish it, because then I would be able to take you to court for breaching a court order that these things should not be spoken about. And the reason they can't be spoken about was because they were untrue. And if you want to know what the background was, I was due to give evidence against the Guardian. I was due to give evidence on behalf of the Daily Telegraph. 2 weeks before, the Guardian produced a document or an article that was actually full of misinformation and lies, including, and not only, but including a transcript, a comment that was meant to have come from a transcript of a TV programme that had been produced by the BBC, called Everyman, about my work. Now, interesting, the transcript had been doctored and it had me saying things I didn't say, but the Guardian never looked at the article, the actual broadcast. All they got was a transcript. Now, in 2 weeks, in a trial lasting 2 weeks, the Guardian had every opportunity to give evidence for what they said. And the result was a jury decided that all of it was lies. That's the facts of the case. The editor, Mr. Rusbridger, found that very hard to live with because they had won so many libel actions that they thought that someone like me, who didn't have the hundreds of thousands of pounds it takes to take an action, they thought that they could run me out of money and they could make it difficult for me. But after 2 years of investigation, they could find nothing to substantiate anything they wrote about me. Now, that's the facts of it. And if you want to make some issue out of the fact that I had to go back and sue them twice and make that some kind of problem, that's your problem. But it doesn't say anything about me other than the fact that my reputation, because of the work I do, is quite important to me. And I would have thought that the reputation of Jacob Prasch would be very important to him. Yet the one thing I've heard in the last few months since I got involved in this is what he terms the ad hominem argument being thrown at me. Always the same. It's always allegations against me as a person. Now that's very interesting because Jacob says he doesn't go in for that. But of course, that's all that you people have done. The thing that hasn't been answered, the thing that hasn't been shown, is any answers to the allegations that I've submitted to be looked at. Now, I have used, in each case, accurate information and documentation. And yet we've had no serious response to that. I have to ask the question why. Because Jacob, if you want to get your name back, the answer would be to show the accounts, to actually produce the documents that you say you have. But we'll get on to that later. The problem is that in this case, all that Jacob has ever done is argue about people rather than the issues. Now, I have kept it very carefully to the issues. And that I find actually very disappointing that people like Joshua Chavez, Amos Farrell, Mr. Super Sleuth, the very experienced senior detective, who only ever rose to the rank of sergeant, which, if that's what the police are relying on, then I'd have to say we're in a very sorry state in this country. And beyond that, just for you, Amos, have you even looked at the evidence? You are this senior investigator who is meant to be a police officer. Have you been up to Scotland, to the Menelaus, to see the accounts? Have you looked at the documentation they've got? Have you even spoken to me and asked me to see the documentation? The answer to that, of course, is no. And as to some of the other bizarre things that Chavez has argued, I find almost amazing. He talks about something to do with Joint Service Interrogation Wing and some documents that were mentioned in an interview I gave many, many years ago. Have you never ever heard that in this country we have something called the Official Secrets Act? And when you sign a document like that, you don't talk about it. You don't talk about things like that. The document that I showed that person was a document that's called restricted, which is the lowest form of classification of security you can have. But as to why I got it and what I did has nothing to do with anything. I've never ever spoken of it, and I never will. So, Mr. Farrell, Mr. Chavez, start trying to actually get some facts together. Not just innuendo, assumptions that aren't true. Then people might take you seriously, but at present I find both of you just a bit of a joke, really, and some people that I just cannot take seriously. And if anybody that has read anything that they've written and you want to give me a call or you want to write to me, do write to me. I'm prepared to answer things that don't break the Official Secrets Act, but I will be honest and tell you exactly what happened with anything. In fact, many of the people that have actually asked to come and see me or have spoken to me, I've spoken to very frankly and answered every question they've asked. So there's your chance. You want to do some investigating? Come and ask some serious questions and you'll get some serious answers. Unlike Jacob. Anyway, one of the things that's obviously happened since then is there's been a statement by Jacob about his accounts. Now, we still haven't got any accounts, of course. There are no accounts that were published. And that little bit that he put somewhere on the internet that nobody could actually find unless they knew what they were looking for. And of course, Jacob didn't actually put it on the normal place, which is on the Moriel website. In that, he makes a number of excuses or explanations for what's happened and about the money and so on. And he talks a lot about the fact that actually he's this tent maker that actually earns money and from that donates it to Moriel. Or he implies that. Well, I'd like to see some accounts to show the evidence for all of these things he's saying. Because the thing we do have is the statement that he gave to the American Revenue Service, which says quite clearly that in return for working 40 hours a week, he got paid $90,000. Now, a love offering is something that if you're getting, in this country, if you're getting 90,000 in love offerings from various people on behalf of the fact that you're a Bible teacher or whatever, I think the Inland Revenue would be very, very worried about that. But we're talking about America, and I don't know about American law, but I do know that when somebody says they work 40 hours for an organisation and they get paid $90,000 for that, that is not a love offering, that is a gift. It's certainly not designated funds, as Jacob wishes us to believe. Designated funds are when something, a project that the charity or the organisation is involved in gets money specifically for that. And if people want to give him a love offering, I'm not even sure why it goes through the accounts. Because frankly, it should go directly to him. And it is just possible that the people in America, remember that America is different from the UK and also from New Zealand and Canada and all the other places, South Africa and so on, is all separate. Everything that comes into them is handled separately to America, so we're told, although my information is that all the money actually is sent directly over to David Lister. If that is the case, then why isn't it shown as designated funds? Where is the designation? There is no designation. 40 hours a week, 90,000 paid for. It's a red herring to talk about love gifts. In any case, we come to David Lister. Now here is David Lister, who's the treasurer, and I'm sure he's doing a good work. But he's not in the front line. People don't know or see him. He doesn't speak at conferences. He's not the Bible teacher. So how do people know to give him almost the same amount of money for doing slightly less hours, but 35 hours instead of 40? But this is a nonsense. Again, in the accounts, it says that he works 35 hours for the charity and the charity therefore pay him a salary. And then we get on to this wonderful issue that all the money that comes in is used for all the wonderful missions that are going on. But actually, if you look at those accounts, only 112,000 get sent to all these people in all the countries that Jacob keeps talking about. And yet, that's only 25% of their annual income. 25%. And actually, it's $50,000 less than what Jacob and his colleague gets. Now, that's something very strange going on there. If more money is paid on to these two men's salary than is given to all the good works that this charity or this non-profit organisation uses or spends trying to help people. In the UK, we have Moriel Missions. Now, that is a charity. And that had an income in the last accounts of 54,000, of which they only spent actually 29,000. Right? But there's no mention of where the money's come from, who it's being paid to, what their expenses, what in England we call government, what the costs of raising the money is, and no mention of the accounts, who did the accounts. There's none of the normal things that a charity does when they're showing their accounts. And Mr. Prasch, if you want to see how it's done, you should look at Catalyst, because we actually do have accountants that are appointed that are totally separate from our organisation to go through everything. You still haven't answered any of that. But then we come to the other point. What about the money that you do get from selling things? Now, all this thing about you give everything away just is a nonsense. Look at your website. Look at your bookshop. Look at everything that you have on there. It all has a price. None of it is given away. And in the accounts that we quoted, in the returns that you made to the Revenue Service in the States, you clearly had figures for it. You had figures for how much they cost to produce and what the profit margin was. In other words, what you actually got back for it. And interestingly, it was 5 times more you sold them for than you actually cost to produce them. They're your figures. They're not mine. I'm not making it up. These are your figures. there are so many other questions that I find really difficult to understand or to get an answer from. And I'd like some answers, because I really don't know. You know, we're told that in one of your broadcasts, we're told that you're a pastor, that you have oversight over 8 churches. And then on another broadcast, you say, actually, I'm really glad that God hasn't called me into a pastoral ministry because I couldn't work in a local church. I couldn't have anything to do with it. I've got a problem with anger. Well, I might agree with that statement. But the other two, they don't come together, do they? They don't actually gel. You say one thing and then another thing. And this is a constant thing with you, Jacob. I don't think, you're a very good liar because you can't remember what you said before. One of the things that really seems to have upset both Jacob, Amos Farrell and Josh Chavez is that they want to allege that Moriel is not under investigation by any authorities. Nobody has ever said that they have been. What has been said is that I am investigating them as the director of Catalyst. Can't be any clearer. And what am I doing? I am investigating. And just in case, Amos, I know English is not very good and you're not very good at understanding what words mean, but maybe you'd like to look that up in a dictionary, what the meaning of investigation is. And as you're meant to be a senior investigator, I would have thought you'd have known that. Anyone can carry out an investigation. We have never alleged that you're under official, or Jacob is under official investigation. It may come, but we'll see about that. And on that subject, Mr. Chavez, you might like to know your comments about you're going to go to the charity commissioners. Feel free to. We have kept to every law in this country, and I can assure you that there is nothing shady about anything that we have done financially. And we will answer the charity commissioners, and I'll also answer anybody that bothers to come and ask me about it. And, all you're trying to do is just blur the edges so nobody looks at the actual facts. And this is the thing that you people out there have got to do. You must look at the evidence. Another issue that I want to raise is because Josh Chavez accused me of 2 things, accusing Jacob Prasch of being an alcoholic. Actually, I didn't say that at all. What I actually said was he has a liking for Jack Daniels and malt whiskey. Now, since we actually broadcast that, right, we have had a number of bits of information that have shown that that is absolutely the case. Right? Now, if you people who are watching this think it's okay for someone to drink, expensive whiskey, that's fine if you don't have an issue with that. But I know that some of you will. And certainly, if you look at 1 Timothy, where it talks about, the requirements for ministry, you might read that and think that that's a problem, even if it's not a problem for a Christian to drink. Someone that drinks and has a fondness for Jack Daniels and Scotch whiskey, there seems to be a problem to me. So first of all, Josh, get it right. I didn't accuse him of being an alcoholic. He may be, he may not. All I've said is that a number of people know that he drinks. The second problem, which I find really interesting that you raised, was that I accused him of sexually assaulting women. I didn't say that at all. I made no such accusation. What I actually said was women had made statements to us saying that they felt uncomfortable by the way that he got too close, invaded their personal space. Now, how you can change that to something else shows just how badly you use the truth, how badly you quote things. I could go through lots of other things that you've said, but frankly, I'm not really interested in getting into an argument with you. My argument with you is that you just don't seem to have any idea of morality, of truth, of honesty, and you behave in a way that I find totally objectionable. But apart from that, that's up to you. That's your problem. What I have a problem with is Jacob Prasch, or Prasch, not telling the truth and misleading people. That's the issue. And if you want to make it about me, that's fine. We'll have that discussion. If you want to have that discussion with me, that's fine. But be careful, because there are lots of questions, not only about the several names that you use and the people you impersonate, but I've got statements about your behaviour, the way that you've recorded phone calls, the way that you've used things against people, the way that you've used private communications that you've got your hands on that you've made public. Frankly, Joshua, I think you are a troublemaker. You are somebody who likes to stir it up. Another thing that has saddened me greatly is the comments by the CMFI that published something claiming that they had no problems. They didn't think there was any issues about Jacob Prasch at all. I find this really interesting. Tell me, you people in CMFI, have you checked the evidence? Have you looked at what's been said? Have you looked about the direct lies where Jacob says one thing on tape and then says exactly the opposite? These are not things that can be edited. These are things that are so clear cut, right? Why haven't you checked any of this? This is a major issue affecting the church, and he is one of your members. And yet you haven't even bothered to contact me or to contact the men-in-laws or any of the other people that have criticised Jacob. And if you haven't, how comes? Here's a challenge to you. Why don't you set up a hearing? You know, we've already said that I'm quite willing to meet Jacob and produce my evidence. As long as he answers the questions, that'll be fine. And I'm sure if I spoke to the men-in-laws, they'd probably agree too. So why don't we have a meeting? It could be recorded so that everybody will have the same recording. So there will be no question that anything could be cut or edited or anything. And then we can have it broadcast. And we can see whether you really do know what the issues are, and whether you think that lying, accusing brothers and sisters of Christ of financial mismanagement when there is no evidence, when the evidence shows that it's not true, whether that's acceptable as an organisation. Because if it is, I have a great worry about you. Because somebody that bears false witness against a brother in Christ, my understanding of the Bible is that's quite serious. So come on, let's have a meeting. Another issue that's come up, which I'm rather surprised about, is the question of how Jewish Jacob Prasch is. And I've no way of knowing. I haven't done any of that investigation, but somebody else has investigated it and has come to the conclusion that Jacob has no Jewish blood within him whatever. Now, from my understanding, talking to many people that go to his conferences, that's one of the things that he plays on. And I just don't understand it. But maybe Jacob, you should deal with this. And come out and honestly say, were you over-egging it just a bit? Were you lying to get some extra response from various Christians, to give you an authority in the area that you were working in? Or you wanted to be in? I don't know. Perhaps it would help if you actually told us the truth about it. But if your father was Jewish with a name like Aloysius, a good old Catholic saint's name, I would be very surprised. And if you were Jewish and that you were circumcised, you've obviously got the writ, the normal shit that people get. Just show it. Show us your birth certificate. Show us the information. To you people out there, I think this is what the issue is. And it's a fundamental issue. If you knew that your pastor regularly lied to you, would you want him to be your pastor? Would you want him to be a Bible teacher to you if you couldn't trust that he would keep to the Ten Commandments, i.e., thou shalt not bear false witness? Now, if your answer to that is, no, I wouldn't want it, then I'm going to say to you, you really need to check the evidence out. Forget personalities, forget everything, how the thing started. And by the way, I still haven't spoken to David Nathan. I still have not spoken to him. I've not communicated with him. I've not had any contact with him whatsoever. And despite what some people have said, I've certainly not been paid a penny by him. Check out the evidence. That is the key thing for you to do. And if you're willing to accept a Christian leader that doesn't know the truth or doesn't tell the truth, then I can only say, God help you. And I really pray for you. Anyway, thank you for all the very nice messages that I've received, thanking me for exposing this and for giving the evidence. Thank you for those of you that have come to see me to talk it through. I've really appreciated it. I've met some lovely people and people that I hope that will continue to be friends long after all this is forgotten. So until the next time, I pray that God will keep you and lead you into all truth through the Holy Spirit. Bless you.